Hello. We're here. And I have to say already, I apologize, but there's a whole lot of lag today, and I've been working on trying to do something about it, and it's not going away. It's also pouring down rain here outside my studio today, and so I've got all the windows wide open to let as much daylight in as we can, and we're going to go with it, and hopefully we'll have enough light that we won't get the real problem with that is if you start seeing a lot of if my autofocus is going in and out and in and out of focus, that is a lighting issue, unfortunately, and I'll do what I can to stop that if we start having that problem. If you're out there and can let me know you're watching, let me know if the sound is good, if the picture's okay, etc. That's extremely helpful to me to know what's going on. And now we're gonna jump right into this. Let's see, let me go down to my tabletop here and put out our project for the day. This is gonna be just kind of a relaxing, let's do a sort of holiday themed thing. And oops, let's zoom in. Zoom way in here. This is a fun, whimsical or primitive style Santa Claus, and I have him too zoomed in, don't I? I have mounted him. I painted him in watercolor, and then I mounted it to this board. It's one of these, or I have one right here that's not got anything on it, so I can show you this one. This is what it is. You can also get these with hardboard, so that you're not covering up, because this is not the board right here. It looks like it because it looks good on the edge there. It looks like it matches, but that's actually paper. This one's the wrong size. I don't have another one to show you exactly the size, but what I did there was I painted my watercolor painting, and then I mounted it onto the board. Now this part wouldn't be showing obviously because this is the right size board and the other one's not, but anyway, I stuck it on there with some Mod Podge, and you can also use they have products that work good for that, gel matte medium or things like that. So I stuck it on here. The purpose of, or the point of that being, I don't have to oh, well, I've got the wrong reference photo up there. Let me fix that while I talk to you. The point of this mounting thing being, I do not have to, sorry, I can't talk and think about something different at the same time. There we go. I don't have to purchase a frame for this, so it's a little bit less expensive way to deal with that. Let me just check a couple things here. My phone is pinging and pinging, and I have some people that talk to me during the live stream via text message, so I was checking to make sure that wasn't what was going on there. Anyway, if you don't want to spend money buying a frame or putting your watercolor in a regular frame that has a piece of glass in it, the glass protects your watercolor. This one I carried around in my bag and it got all crinkled, but I'll tell you a solution for that in a minute. Anyway, sorry, I'm changing out my reference picture, and at the moment I can't even find it. That's not that. That's not that. Let's go to this screen. There we go. Hi. Okay, let's see now. Get my reference picture and turn it off. Okay, if you don't want to put this under glass, you can mount it to a board, but then you need to put something on it to seal it, to protect it. You can also put it in a frame without the glass in the frame, and a lot of people are doing that because in larger artworks, that glass gets really heavy, and it's easy to break it. Let's see, I'm going to turn me out of there, and that way, okay, I can go ahead and think about what I'm doing with the reference pick. But anyway, this vintage kind of a old world Santa has always been one of my favorites, and I just like this style. And you can find a lot of oh geez, I don't have the right reference photo in this computer. If it's not one thing, it's another, isn't it? I like this old world style, and I have a lot of drawings like this one and this one. These are things that I did years ago. Let me show you my other photos here. I did them years ago, and because I've moved so frequently, I've managed to lose much of my my actual pieces and the patterns and things that I had drawn years before, unfortunately. So so I don't have the actual pieces, and I don't even have the patterns. What I found was some old photos of my of where I painted this one on a piece of wood. I painted this one on a big piece of barn wood. But I had them, these photos are from when I had them in a little craft store. And so, give me just a second here. I had them in a little craft store, and darn, that's not going to allow me to do that. And so I have photos, and I took those photos and I kind of manipulated them in my Photoshop to try and come up with a better looking version of this so we could use it for a reference photo, but it just didn't work. It was not, you can see it's not really a very good quality photo. So we're going to use my drawing of this as our actual reference photo to draw from today. And that is if I can find it. Oh, I think I found it. Maybe. No. Phooey. I've got the live stream thumbnail, but I can't grab the image out of that. And I thought that I had emailed it to myself. We may have to just work without the... No, I'll take a picture of it now and get it up there. Sorry, I don't know how I managed to forget the reference photo today, but I did. So, re-grabbing this reference photo. Anyway, let me get back over here so I can see. Oops, wrong. There. Okay. So, if you're able to put me any little message in the comments to let me know. This area of my table is looking like it's in the dark, and I have some lights I can try. Let's see if I just put this light on. You can tell me if that's any better or not. And also I'd like to know if you can tell me where you're watching from. That's always really a fun thing I like to know about. Meanwhile, while I'm getting this other picture up here, I want to show you a couple of things I've got here, if I can manage to do multiple things at one time. Okay, so I drew this same thing a bunch of times, and this one, I colored it. Okay, I think it's fixed. If you can let me know if it's fixed. It looks like it on my end that it's fixed now. Hopefully it is. Because yeah, I do know if I go out and come back in, it shuts down the stream, and then that link that I sent out doesn't work anymore, and you have to know to go to my channel and find it. It's a lot of confusing stuff. So I will just pop over here to this screen and see what I've got. Let's see if that shows what it's supposed to show. Back to having a lot of lag again, but at least I'm there. Now let's see if that puts my reference photo up in the picture, or if it takes me out Took me out. Okay, there we go. Now let's see if we can get the reference photo back up in there without freezing up again. Okay, reference photo's there. Now we're going to go to this screen and hopefully be able to start drawing with no more technical problems. I hate technical problems. Let's see here. Get that in there and get that out of there. See if that worked. We're back to having a lot of lag, but at least it's not frozen anymore. So, okay. Now, let me shake my head and start over. One of these days, I'm going to hopefully hire a person to help me out with the technical side of this, but for now it's just me, and I apologize. But I'm what I have. So, and I'm not a computer nerd. Okay, I am a good artist though. Let's go with this. Let's start drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and, well, no, if I zoom in anymore, we lose the reference photo. So I'm going to stay right there. If you can't see very well, let me know in the comments and I'll take another minute to fix things up. But I just want to get going on this. So to start off with, we're going to draw right on watercolor paper. I have I have a piece of, it's 9 by 12. And I drew a line down the center to divide it into two 6 by 9 pieces. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw on this side and paint it, and then if we have time I'll just flip it around and draw on this side and paint it, and then I can just cut it in half when I'm finished, which is exactly what I did with this piece and the other little Santa that I was showing you. Oh, and I had told you that I would tell you about this in a minute. See how this is all bent up? I don't really like to do that to my pieces. I had to carry it around in a bag with me to show it to some people. But the other one was almost as wrinkled as this. It was warped and messed up from a lot of water. But mounting it this way, I actually put Mod Podge on the board and Mod Podge on here and stuck them down and then put a heavy weight on it and let it dry. And that flattened this out really nice. It's got a really good surface and a nice flat paper there mounted on this. So this is not really a problem to me. And why that is important today is because I'm not going to tape this paper down to a piece of wood. I want to be able to flip it around and paint all, different sides of it really easy. And in fact, cutting in half might make that easier if you want to do that. But I'm going to, this way, be able to paint right over to the edges of the paper. Good, I see that we're up and going, so yay, thank you for that. Okay, now, I want to paint all the way to the edges of the paper, so I'm not taping it down. I'm just going to draw right on the watercolor paper, and I will say also, this particular way that we're going to be painting today works on any kind of paper. So if you have some paper that's not really all that good and you want to use that up, this is kind of an okay time to do that. However, the better paper will give a better overall appearance when you're looking at your piece when it's finished. Just the texture of the paper and things like that, it'll look better if so always use the best paper you can use. But that being said, this is a time when you can actually get by with using up your not so great paper. All right, so we're going to start with the face. We're going to draw an upside down U, and we're going to put a little ding in it. What you want to do is figure out where his face is going to be on your paper. You don't want to start too low, or you'll, like I did, run off the page before you, let's see if I can get that in the frame. And of course I have to wait a second because of the lag. I think we're in there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, see, I ran off the page here, ran out of space. And I did that again on this one, but I got it right on this one. So what I'm going to tell you to do is think about where you want the face, and then think about how much of the rest of the page you're going to need for body, and that gives you that helps you determine the size of this upside down U you want to make. And so we're going to make it like this, but then we're going to kind of ding in the side of it and go over like that. So hopefully you can see that. Ooh, I see that we're not seeing it very great because of the light, so let's zoom in a little bit more, and then I will have to grab the clicker again one more time here and go put that reference photo in this screen so that we're able to follow that. And it's huge there. Okay, if I pop that up in the corner, about like that, hopefully we can see it well enough. Oops, one more little click here. And then I can keep my paper over here. And I might have to draw on the other side of the paper if I don't have the room to get it over into the frame zoomed in. Oh, it works. Okay. I'll just scoot my paint palette over a little bit. Okay, that way you can see that. I don't know how I did it, but I've already smudged some graphite on there. You don't really want to erase a whole lot on your watercolor paper, but this works. You know, we're not gonna erase a whole lot, and hopefully you can see that. I'm gonna go over it a little darker. You don't normally want to draw so dark on your watercolor paper because your lines, as soon as you put water or paint over it, you cannot erase them anymore. They won't go away. So and we're going to want to you're going to want to draw that line really light because we're going to tweak it in a minute. We're going to change it up a little bit. But looking at the reference photo, you can hopefully see where that is. Let me just show you on this. That is this line right here, the line between his hair and his hood or hat. So that's what we just put in there. And now we're going to put the top of his mustache. So just go right in here, and that's where the bottom is, and there's like a nose there, and then you put this up and over, and that's the top edge of the mustache. And I am really hoping you can see that good. If you need it zoomed in further, if you can put that in the chat for me, then I'll know to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go with it like this and hope that we can see it. All right, so now I'm going to put the bottom of this mustache in here, just like that. And you see I'm extending it a little bit past the edges of there because it does, in the reference photo, it goes out a little bit. Let me show it to you in my drawing. Let's see which one you can see it best in. You can see it in all of them. But the mustache kind of goes out past that edge there into the hat area. So you're going to want to make that mustache stick out there, and you can put a curl on the end of it or whatever you want to do to make it look like you like it. And then we want to get a little bit of a start on the beard. The beard is a really stylized thing. It's these straight lines with curls on the bottom, and it's really pretty. I like the way it looks. So we're going to put that center line right down there, and it needs to be longer than this, the length of from the top of there to the mustache. It needs to be longer than that by about 1.5 times. So that's pretty good right there, and that will allow us to still have enough space left to get the whole rest of the figure on here. So now to get to do this, I'm just gonna have to use this. To do what you need to do there, I want you to visualize on your paper. What we've got is this. I'm gonna just draw it bigger on here so you can see it good. Okay, so we've got a mustache there, mustache there, and we've got this line coming down. And let's just see if we're make sure we're on. This is not to scale. This is just so you can see what we're doing. I'm going to put, to get those curls on the bottom of there, I need to know how to visualize that. And what we've got is we've got all these straight lines coming down and curls all across the bottom. So we've got a curl on this side, and this is not what I want you to draw. I want you to visualize some squares. Also, I'm going to tell you that every time I've drawn this, I draw it a little bit differently. It doesn't always come out the same, and it doesn't matter. It always comes out looking pretty. But you see how I've just got kind of, I've visualized some squares here, and then I'm going to have lines coming down here. And what I will do is I'm going to imagine these squares are on my drawing over here, and then I'm going to put the curled line coming in, something like that. And you know, it looks really super messy on here, but I think you can get the idea of where we're going to how we're going to use this to get where we want to go over here on the drawing. So I'm going to just imagine where these squares are here, and without drawing the square, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, we need a curl on this side, and I want to have it look something like that, and it comes over, but it bumps into the other curl over here. So I'm doing that, and then we've got another curl over here. This one's maybe a little, you want to be careful that you don't get them all too big, and they need to get smaller as they go out to the sides, or otherwise his beard's going to be really, really wide, and we don't want to run out of space going this way, as much as we don't want to run out of space going this way either. So just putting these curls in, kind of imagining that I'm putting them inside the squares that are there. Okay, so then I've got a line that comes up there, and I've got a line, let's see, where will this line go from? This, and also you can change the direction that they're curling. I could have made this one curl and probably should have made it curl the other direction. I think I will do that, because it'll make him look a little more balanced. And again, you ideally don't erase a lot on your watercolor paper, but these little bits that we're erasing here are not going to mess it up, and also the way we're going to paint it is it's gonna be okay. All right, so now let's see, I've got room for one up here like this, and then just draw this line, and over here you don't want to draw lines coming up outside of the mustache area, so this will probably be the last one that comes right out of there, but then I can put another curl way up high, and let's make it a skinny one, I think, and it can come up and then go over, so we just get a little bit of shape going on to his beard there. And the same thing over here, I'm going to put a nice fat curl right there and bring it up here and over. And I think I'll do one more. Kind of like that. That gives him an interesting looking beard. And it is very stylized. It's not meant to look realistic. It's meant to look decorative, and but yet that conveys beard. So, and if you want to, you can put a little line there. Let's see if I can get that to show up in here, or if you can maybe see it in the actual reference photo. Let's see, come right over here and see if I can point to that right there. Are we in the camera? I hate this lag business. It makes it that I can't, I have to wait until what I'm doing catches up to my screen here, and that looks like it's not in the frame, so up this way and see if that works. Now I gotta wait a second. Okay, there. I have a little bit of a lip there on this one. You can leave that out or put that in. I'm leaving it out of this one that I'm drawing. because I think the way I drew it, it doesn't need it. But you know, that is, again, whatever way works for you. Okay, let's see here. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to put his shoulders, well, no, the hat first. We want to do the lines for we're going to do this. Let's see, this is easiest for me to show. We're going to do this line right here above, you know, the top edge of his hat. This line works for it's the lower edge, like his face, and then his hat starts right there. So we're going to put this hat, and what you do is you go down in the vicinity of the edge of the mustache here, and you just going to go kind of up, maybe give it a little bit of a swing out if you want to, and then kind of back over here close to the head, and back up and straight over, and then I'm going to angle it down and then bring it back in, and I want it to end up right over here at where this beard is. That's good there. Okay, now that is this line. He's also got, there's a little bit sticking out up here that's like the hood part, like this is the wide brim, I don't know. But we're going to put some lines like this, a little hump there, and then a line that goes up and kind of over and down. Put another little bit right there. Maybe one more. That's a little too pointy, but I think I'm going to leave it. Let's just see how that comes out looking. Okay, so that is most of the hat drawn. And then what I want to do is put the shoulders in, because the shoulders kind of come out from where you've ended the hat there, and you want to just bring this out and kind of round it off and shoot it down that way. Now, we don't have to figure out how long that arm's going to be quite yet, because we want to get this other shoulder on. So we're going to start again in the vicinity of this, and yes, it is lower than that side, but that's going to make him look like he's actually standing there for real, or you know, it's a posture that will work. So you don't necessarily need to put him, we're not necessarily looking straight on at him with him standing there at attention or something. He's standing there with his bag of toys. So this shoulder comes out and then rounds down, and this one isn't going to come down as far. So just bring it kind of straight down to in about the area where his elbow might be. And we're going to shoot that back over in that way a little bit. Here. Now on this side, his coat is kind of sticking out like this, and you see more of the belly, I guess, than the arm there. So this is what we got so far. And now we're going to start adding, we're going to add details all over the place here. I want to go ahead and put this little bit of his the white fur trim on the front of his coat, that is this part right in here. So what we want to do is just make the two lines that come straight down, and you can use your beard as a gauge for where to put it. And you don't want to put it the whole way down yet, because he's got his arm comes over in there. So we want to leave space for that. Now we need the crook of the arm in here to happen. So we kind of got that, and then this sort of goes a slanty line like that. That's going to get that arm where we want it. And the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and, let's see, I think I will figure this arm length, because I don't want to get this one in and then find out that it's wrong, because it means this has to be too long and I'm going to run off the page or be too short. So I'm going to do this one first. So here you just have to eyeball it. Now you can do him sort of squat and short, or you can do him tall and skinny. This one that I did over here is taller and more narrow than the reference one that I've drawn. That is a style question. It's not a question of which one is more correct. It is a question of, you know, this is a very stylized drawing. It's not trying to be realism or realistic. It is representational. Those are actually two different words. So we can stylize this thing, and you can make him short and squat, or you can make him tall and narrow, whichever one suits what you're going for when you're making your particular drawing. So I'm going to keep this guy a little bit long, and that means I have to just eyeball about how long I want his arm to be. It's a question of how long do you want it to look, and also how much space do we have left on the bottom edge of our paper here. So we're gonna just put an end to his arm right there, and this is going to be this line that I'm drawing across here is the bottom edge of the white and black checkered section. So I'll put that right on there. And then we still have the fur trim on the bottom of there, and then his mitten. So his hand is going to be, down about to here on this. So that's a good length for that arm. And I still will have room to put the bottom part of him on there. So now to get this fur trim on here, what I want to do is I want to start about halfway up in that little box and angle that line out. And when it gets over level with this line, then I start bringing it straight down. And that's creating that rounded look of the cuff going around his sleeve. I don't really want to make it quite that straight across there though, just because I like the look of it having some ebb and flow going on here. I don't like the static straight on thing. Okay, then I'm going to get out here a little bit past that edge, and I'm going to just bring it up to there. And again, that helps to create that rounded appearance of there's a cuff of fur going around the bottom of his sleeve there. And then for the mitten, I'm going to go kind of straight down from there and then just go in just the least little bit, because he's got some big mittens on here to keep his hands warm. And I'm just going to put a mitten shape. And that is hard to really mess up. It's like a letter U. And don't go the whole way back up to the cuff, because you need to put the thumb on there. So just put that coming out there, and then put that line straight over to there, because he's got his hand is holding on to the top edge of his bag of toys. And we're going to go ahead and position that. So draw a little line straight out and then angle it down, and that's good enough for right there. Then we across from there, make this come mostly straight out. You can make it have a dip if you want, because that makes it look like it's this fabric bag of, a burlap bag of toys or something. And so that's the top edge of that bag of toys. Now we're going to put the bottom on it in a minute, once we've got the rest of him drawn, because we want the bottom to go in a nice line straight across with the bottom of his shoe. So we're going to figure that out when we get to that point. But for now, we could go ahead and put the part where you're seeing down inside the bag here. Let's see, I'm going to just put that there and raise that up and over. There's where you can see down in. When we paint that, that'll be this section right in here where you're seeing like inside the bag. Maybe you can see that right here pretty good. You can see where I've got these twigs and things sticking down inside the top of that bag there. Okay, so now let's go back to the other cuff on this sleeve and put this other mittened hand, and also he's holding on to a star. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and figure where I want this black and white checkered cuff part to go. And I'm just going to kind of put that in here, and I'm going to make it a little bit more narrow on this side than I am on this side, just so that the drawing will work out right. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to put that cuff of white fur on here, and I'm going to have it come out from up there and then go down here and up and around here. And we've got the cuff of white fur on the end of that sleeve. Okay, now if you need to erase a little bit, now's a good time to do that. And remember, I am drawing these lines a whole lot darker than they really should be. When you're drawing on your watercolor paper, try to draw as light as you can so that the pencil lines don't take over your painting. I mean, a little bit of pencil line showing can be part of the style and add to the artwork, but I don't think I like such dark lines as this typically in my work. Okay, so now we want to go ahead here, instead of drawing this mitten and then trying to put the star in it, it works out better if you draw most of the star first. So we're going to put that star in place, and we're going to look at where the star falls in relation to this strip of white fur that's coming down on the front of his coat. So we want to have this is going to stick over there, and then just put that up, and then a little point over this way, down and over, and then this part can go way up here, and we get a little bit of a start there, and we're going to call that enough of the star is drawn that we're going to go ahead and fit his mittened hand around that star. So what we'll do there is, to start, we put this like the thumb part goes kind of up behind that little ding right there where the star is sticking out, and then we can put the rest of this, looking at where this comes here, we'll put this mitten coming down and just holding on to this star like that. And then I'm going to erase my lines a little bit that are sticking out a little too much. Because I'm drawing really hard on my watercolor paper, they don't erase completely. But if you will be drawing lightly on your paper, you can erase any unnecessary lines really easy like that. Okay, now we want to continue this fur trim. It goes right on down here to somewhere in just a little bit past the lip of that bag. And here's where we need to make another judgment call also. Look at how much paper you have left. How much more space do you have? How far down do you want to go? Do you want his feet to stop right here or way up here, or do you want to bring them all the way down? So kind of eyeball that and figure this. I'm thinking I want this to be only about that far down. Well, maybe a little bit more. On this one that I drew, I had a lot of space to go, and I wanted to just make him as tall as I could to see what that would look like. You can see on this one, he's obviously, I made him a lot shorter than that. He's kind of wide and short, and his face was wide. So that was the style for this one. And on this one, I went more narrow, so tall and narrow. There's a name for that style, and right at the moment I can't even think what it is. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. Okay, so let's bring the other side of that fur trim down, and it just comes down to the top edge of the bag of toys, and the rest of that is behind his bag of toys. Now we're going to want to put this going over to the side, and then we also need to put this bottom, this deep cuff of fur at the bottom of his coat. That's going to go here. And as far as how far over, it's best to start up here and figure where do you want his coat to come out. And I'm going to have it come out from right about there and just come down right in that area, something like that. I like the look of that, and so that lets me bring this fur trim over to there and go out a little bit farther than that line you put on there, and put that right there. Now we'll finish that in a minute because the bag of toys is going there. But that is pretty good for that, and then we need the checkered part right there. Now let's go back up to his face. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you are able to put those in the chat. And I don't see anything there for now, so I'm going to go ahead and go on. Let me know if you need me to go faster or slower. All right, now on this face, he's got some hair that's peeking out on the underneath edge of that hood, and this is where I said if you have drawn your line here lightly enough, you can kind of adjust it when we put this hair in. But I'm going to leave that line dark, and then I'm going to just put a little bit of hair showing right over here, and then we've got a little bit of something kind of curling down there, maybe a curl right there, and that's going to go over, and I might have a little bit of hair showing on that side, and that's all I've got room for on this one to put for hair. And then we're going to remember this is stylized, so we're not going to try to get real fussy with the facial features. We're going to actually put a nose in that's tall and skinny, and we're going to just do it just like that. That's his nose. Hopefully that shows up. Let's see if I can put that up here close to the camera and get you to be able to see that really good. Because I just drew, wait, if I talk, it's going to make me move this around and the autofocus will blur it. So for a minute, let's just see if I can get it in the camera. Okay. I think it was there. Gosh, I hate when there's lag in here because I'm standing here holding this in front of the camera trying to see if I've got it in the frame or not. That's probably as best I can do. Unless, tell you what, switch over to my other screen again because I can see it over here. Okay, that should be showing. As long as I can hold it still. Okay, so there you go. You can see his nose is just two straight lines right down there, and I'm going to put a straight line on both sides of there for eyebrows, just a plain little straight line, and then I'm going to put some very small little bit of a circle here for his eyes, and I'm not going to really attempt to draw a whole lot of highly detailed eye, because remember this is stylized, it's whimsical or primitive. That's all you really need. I am going to put a little bit of a line on the side of there for his nose because I like what it does. It gives him kind of almost a 3/4 view there. Okay, and I'm going to hold this up here again so hopefully you can see it. And I've got something rigged where I think I know what I'm doing for where to hold it. There we go. Yes. Okay. So you can see that's all of the definition that I'm giving for his face. It's all that he really needs for this particular style. And that makes it easy too when we go to paint it. Okay, so that's done. Now we want to put the bag of toys needs some definition. So I'm going to put this edge coming in here, and then I'm going to figure that it goes way out, and his feet are going to come to right about here. So I want to bring that bag right down into this vicinity. So that's pretty good for that. Now on the other side, it's got to look like it's bulging with toys in it. Yeah, that's pretty good. And it's got a lopsided heart kind of in the center there. And then these other little marks are just some kind of like two leaves of holly, or I don't know, maybe it's mistletoe. I don't know. It's just some decorative thing on his bag. So you can either leave it off or put something different in, or just do this. And they're just kind of randomly on there. They're not facing all the same direction, and I'm just kind of drawing like a leaf and a leaf, hooked together at the bottom. And that's probably all that I need to put on there for that. We'll come back to the twigs in just a second, because I want to go ahead and put his leg on here. So for this, I'm going to just go out, not the whole way to the outer edge. I want to kind of go about where his wrist would maybe be, and that's where that leg is going to come down, that baggy pants that he's wearing. And just give that a little loop there, and then a swoop on that, and that shows the indication of a real baggy pant leg there. And we can go ahead and put the stripes on it now if you want to. Just some kind of wide black and white stripe is the definition of that, and that's to mimic some kind of homespun type of fabric or something, because some people would call this a homespun Santa. All right, now for his shoe, I want it to, the bottom of it is going to be in line with the bottom of the bag there, and it's going to extend out to or a little past the edge of his coat there. So I'm going to put it right out there. He's got a kind of a long foot, and then all you need to do is up and around and keep this part thin. I probably didn't get that thin enough. The toe part for this style looks really good if you keep it really thin out here at the toe. So I'm going to get that nice and thin, and then I want to just give it a little angle up. And back over in here, and then curl it back up to there. And if you don't like your first try, I usually do the shoe a couple of times to get it that it looks really good with the rest of what I've drawn, because this shoe, I can't just draw exactly the same thing every time because it doesn't always match. There, that's pretty good. That looks like a nifty little boot he's wearing. You can't really see that side back there, but imagine that goes back here and then kind of curves back in. And that is his boot. And we don't need any extra definition on that either. We're going to just paint it all with the red color. We'll put a little bit of, you can probably see that on here, I've got a little tiny bit of shadow, darker red color there and lighter red color here, and that gives all of the definition that we need to put on that. Okay, now the last thing to draw is we want to put these sticks up in here, and he's got, if you look in the reference photo, you can see he's got a stick that has several hearts on it, and then he's got a stick with a little bird toy on the end of it, and then some that are just twigs. And this is, put in what you like. So I'm going to start with one coming up this way, and it's going to have hearts on it. So there's a little twig or something with hearts. Then I'm going to go ahead and put one that sticks out this way and has a little bird on it. So again, a U, a letter U, or a half a circle, and then send a tail out to the side there, and then a little bit of straight across for his back, put a little head on it, and a tiny little beak. And that's all the definition we need to draw on that. So then we have that little bird. You can, if you want to, put another little half circle or letter U for an indication of a wing. You can put there if that's what you like to do. So now I think I'm going to put another one with the bird on it, because I just like those. So I'm going to make this one be tall and come right up here, and there'll be another bird right here, with the tail kind of going off behind him, and he's looking kind of upwards. And now I'm going to erase little bits there that made those lines a little too tall, and the rest will just be twigs. So coming up from out of here. Just put something that looks just like twigs that you picked up off the forest floor or something. And don't overdo it. I think I'll put one more short one in here. And that's plenty. If you overdo it, it just gets too busy, and then you lose the pretty effect that you've got going on from the stylized thing. Now, at this point, you want to look at your drawing and see if there's anything about it that you see you might want to change. And I'm going to adjust the bottom of my toys bag to make it better in line with the bottom of the shoe. But other than that, I'm happy with my drawing and ready to start painting. So if we have any more comments, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and let's get the whole way back out to the screen so we can see the whole thing. And I've got to get eraser dirt off my tabletop. I really don't like eraser dirt. Mostly I use those plastic erasers because I can cut them down to size and they don't make as much eraser dirt all over my tabletop. I hate when that gets in my paint. Alright, so moving my pencils and everything out of the way. Set those way up there. Get the paint palette open. And I'm hoping that we've got enough light with my little extra light going on over there. I'm hoping that that will put the right amount of light on the paint palette. And so a couple more paper towels. So I've got my paper with my drawing on it. I've got my paint palette. Try and get it out of the dark. I'm not sure why it's looking so dark when I have the light on it. See if that's okay. Hopefully that's got enough light on the paint palette. Okay, then I'm going to need some paper towels and some containers of water, which I have off to the side because I don't figure you need to see containers of water. You know what that looks like. So paper towel. Now I've got a jar here with my paintbrushes in it, and I'm going to use a variety of these. And I think I'll zoom in for a minute just so you can see what, actually that's too much, let's go for there. I want you to see what paintbrushes I'm going to use. This is mostly a small enough painting that I don't need the larger brushes. So let's see, between these, I think I'll go with that one, and let's use this one. So I've got 3 flat angled brushes, and they're all really close to the same size. I may end up only needing this one and this one, and 1 small round brush. This does not need to be super small. As long as it will hold a really nice point when it's wet, you can get really fine details with that little tip in, paint with like 3 hairs or something. But anyway, there's the brushes that I'm going to use, and I'm going to start with my largest flat angled brush. And let's see, I'm going to make the reference photo, hopefully it won't bother anyone. I'm going to make that reference photo a bit smaller. And let's see, that should show you the painting and the reference photo right there. And I think I'm going to take a minute and have a drink of water. So if you're not ready to paint, play catch up right now. Okay, now get some clean water on your brush. And remember, I'm painting on the left hand piece of this paper. So I'm going to just start putting water all on the background, because I really like how my background came out when I painted it to look like a piece of wood. It was really kind of unintentional, and I just threw it on there in a hurry. So there is nothing difficult about making this background look like this Santa is painted on a piece of wood. And I like how it looks and comes out looking like that when I mount it on that board. So I'm going to do that again. And I'm just putting clear water all over the background of the paper, painting right up to the figure, but don't paint on him. That way, when you put the color on the paper, it'll flow to wherever the paper is wet, and it'll come up to that edge where it's dry, and it won't go any further. So your background color will stay out of your figure, which comes in really handy when you're painting a darker background and a lighter colored figure that way. Alright, so I'm painting right around there. And if you lose track of where you've already put clear water, just tilt your paper sideways a little bit and look for the sheen. Let's see if I can get that to happen for me on my screen. It's going to be tricky since I can't really see it for about 8 seconds. But there. Okay, so you can see how it's wet. You can see that sheen right in there where I've got the paper is good and wet. And then you can see where it's dry over here. That's how you will be able to tell if you lose track of where you've already put water. And you do need to work a little tiny bit quickly with this, because by the time I get back around here, this part that I first did is going to be starting to dry. And this area over in here, I'm going to just paint around those birds because I may want them to be a nice light color, but none of the rest of it matters because I'm going to put a light color on the background, which means the darker reds that I'm going to put on those hearts will cover the light background color easily. But I don't want to smear the pencil lead that I've got on there. So I am using a little bit of caution with putting my water on here. I'm going to go right up around that hat there. Put a little bit more back on here where I started. Oops, I missed a spot over there. Okay, so the background, it has all been moistened really thoroughly with clean water. Now, I don't have water, or I should not have water, actually puddling on the paper. That will be too much. But you want it plenty wet, but not puddling. In other words, if you pick your paper up and tilt it, you don't want the water running around. You want it really wet, but not running, not so much water on there that it, that it runs. Okay, paper's all wet. Now I'm going to just take some yellowy browns. I meant to clean my paint palette and I didn't do that. Let's zoom down here so you can see what I've got going on. I've got some yellows and browns in here. I don't use brown very much straight off the tube, but I've got some Hansa yellow, or some quinacridone gold, or some yellow ochre. And I've probably got a little bit of each of those, but any of those will do as a base. And then you put a little bit of some kind of purple or violet into it, and right away you've got a really nice brown going. Now I want to keep it really, really light, so I'm going to add a lot of water. Maybe pull a little more yellow in there so that it stays more to a yellow, like a pine color might look. Put a little more yellow ochre in that, and plenty of water. And then I'm going to pick up that really really light mix of color and just start smearing it back and forth on here. Now I've got my paper turned so I can go up and down and mimic wood grain a little bit. But it's not hard and you don't have to work hard at it. You just start putting this paint on here, and it's okay that some of it comes out darker than others, because the way that'll dry with this paper all wet like this, that's what's going to give you your appearance of wood grain. It's having those streaks, some darker, some lighter. I'm just turning it all around and making sure I've got some of this light background color all over my background. And like I said, you can put some darker streaks in some areas. It enhances the overall wood grain appearance. Just I'm keeping it off of the birds over here because I want to give them a little bit lighter color, and I can't do that if I've got the darker color over top of them. And this is, as you can see, really, really light right now, but I'm going to go back into it while it's still wet. And I'm going to take a little bit of, you could use burnt sienna, or you could put a little more purple into your mix. Either one of those will work. And just put some streaks through here. And because your paper is still wet, that's going to kind of melt down into the color that's already there and give you some really pretty, soft, edged changes of color. Which when it dries will look just like wood grain. Okay, that's pretty good. Let me zoom in on that for you so you can see what I've got going on. Oops, I touched the edge there. And again, I'm painting without the piece taped to a board because I want to paint all the way out to the edges. Another way you could do that is to cut your paper much larger than you want your finished piece to be, and then that allows you can still tape it down, but you have enough space around the outside of your piece to be able to trim off all that white part. Okay, this is nice. I'm going to put one more little light line up in here, and if you vary the pressure that you're putting on your brush, you can get your strokes to be wider in some areas and thinner in some others. When you're learning how to gauge how much water to put on your paper, you also want to keep in mind that your paper's not consistently the same amount of wetness every time. So you need to also be paying attention to how much water you got in your brush. It's a combination. How wet is your paper? That will determine how wet you need to have the paint that's in your paintbrush. But there we go. He could either be in a forest. To me, it gives an appearance of that he's in a forest, even though it also gives the appearance of that I've just painted him onto a piece of board. I just like how that looks. So that's probably the end of that brush. This isn't even a very big one. It's a 1/2 inch brush, but everything else I do is going to be using smaller brushes than that. So now I'm going to take this, I think might be a 1/4 inch flat angled brush. I think they call these angular shaders if you're at the store looking for what to buy. And I was painting with it earlier, so it's got some color in it, and I want to go ahead and get all that color out. Okay, so now my brush is clean, and what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and start with the red first, because I find if I can identify all the red areas, and I'm going to zoom back out here for a minute. If I can identify all the red and get the red in there, it takes away a lot of the confusion that you can get lost in a piece where you've got a lot going on, and arms crossing and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I need to clear some of this really dark color out because we're not ready for that yet. I had put some dark in my paint palette because I was doing the checkerboard, the black and white, which actually I just realized I forgot to show you how I'm going to draw that on there. So maybe I'll take my pencil and get that done real quick here. There, okay, I got the black out of my paint palette. Pencil, real quick. When you do your cuffs, let me zoom way in here. When we do these cuffs, what you're going to want to do is, let's see if I've got you in the frame good. Slide that under there. Okay, that should work. You want to put some slanted lines in here, and hopefully you could see those. I'm just drawing diagonal lines right in there, and then I'm going to do crisscrossing lines the other direction, and I'm going to kind of try to aim for connecting the tops and the bottoms of my diagonal lines, because that makes it easier to determine which squares or diamonds get which color. So let's see here. Okay, now I'll hold that up to my camera again so you can see what I'm talking about. Get that pencil go. Right in here, when I drew my diagonal lines, I got them. Their points are meeting. It's not absolutely necessary. It just makes it easier when you go to painting them later. You're going to be able to see which squares or diamond shapes get painted black and which ones get left white, if you keep your lines lined up like that. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to next put the red color. I'm going to have to turn my phone off. That's okay. Let's see here. We want to mix up some red, and I like alizarin crimson, which I've got right here. Let's see, get back to my palette. I've got some alizarin crimson because it's a good like a sort of candy apple red color. It has a lot of body and a lot of color to it. It's bright and pretty, and you can make it lean lighter or darker. So I've got a puddle going right here of just the alizarin crimson. And let's see, shift my light around a little bit better. Hopefully you can see it good. So that's what that is. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Scarlet Lake, which if you don't have Scarlet Lake but you have cadmium red, that works. I think they're very similar, but I just like Scarlet Lake better. And I'm going to put a little puddle of that there and let it kind of bump into my alizarin crimson puddle, so those colors kind of start to blend just a little bit. I don't really need them to blend a whole lot because I like that to happen on the paper. But anyway, I've got a pretty good strong pigmented color here. If I draw my brush through it on the paint palette, you can see it's still, or I hope you can see. Let's see if I switch over to this screen, maybe it'll show better. You can see it's not showing a lot of white through that when I run the brush through it. It doesn't show a lot of white of the paint palette below there. So that's a nice rich amount of pigment on there. All right, so now I'm going to just start putting that on the top of his jacket here. And I'm using just the tip of my brush. Let's zoom back in so you can follow that. All right, so I'm trying to be careful not to put my hand down on any wet paint, because that will change how it dries. All right, I'm just bringing that color right down through there, and I'm keeping it over on the sleeve side, because then I want to get some darker color and put it over in that part. And I'm gonna reverse that when it gets down around close to this star. I want the lighter red is gonna go here. And this is not lighter like with less water, I mean with more water. This is lighter with, I'm gonna add some darker red color to it to darken it up. For the moment, this is what I'm doing, just painting around the star, painting around the cuffs and the fur. And if you want to give your fur a little bit of a furry appearance, you just put your brush down and kind of push it. It's down on the page and I'm pushing it up into that fur area to just kind of make a little, you know, my pencil line being so dark it's kind of messing it up, but you can get a little bit of that fur appearance going on. And I want to get my darker color, so I'm just grabbing some of a Perylene Violet, which any kind of a violet or purple that you have will darken your paint up just that little bit, that it kind of gives the appearance of some shading. But there, I'm giving a jagged edge to that fur part right there. Now I want to have this darker color up in here around the beard, and just have it kind of go up into that other red paint while it's still wet. Just tickle some up in there, a little bit up on the shoulder part, and that'll blend together and look good. And then you can keep it straight when it comes down to the sleeve edge, and blend it right in to the other red that you already put on there. Put a little bit darker up under the edge of the beard and that sort of thing. Kind of makes it get that right appearance, gives it some form. Now I'm going to paint the bottom of this sleeve with the darker color, and this is not fur right here, this is like a fabric cuff, so I'm going to not make that edge jagged. And if it's not blending as much as you want it to, you can rinse the color out of your brush. But I'm going to just grab another, this brush is clean and dry, so I'm getting a little bit of water on it, and then I'm going to dry most of the water back out on my paper towel, and then just use that to kind of go over that edge there very lightly and help that to blend a little if it wasn't blending as much as I already, as much as I wanted it to, if it wasn't doing that on its own already. But you want to be real careful because it's easy to pick up too much paint off there, and then you leave a bald spot or a gap, and it starts to not look nice. But just doing that much, you just get a blend of light to dark, from a bright pretty red to a darker red that's kind of giving some shadow and shape to his coat that he's wearing. Now I've got the darker color on my brush, so I'm going to wipe most of that off and get a little water on there, clean that out, so I can go back to the lighter red color. And I'm going to put color on the hat. And I've got just this part, the front part of the hat here. And I want to be real careful and paint with just the tip of my brush around this mustache area because I don't want to lose that. It helps add part of who he is. So I'm getting that on there, and I'm mostly going to put this brighter red color on the outer edge of this hat, and I'm going to come back in with some of the darker red and put it right on that part right up close to his face, because again that will help give some shape and just some nice appearance to this hat. I've got that coming right down in there. And now I'm going to dip just the tip of my brush into the darker and just put it right on here. And it's important to do that while the first red that you put on there is still wet, because that's how the colors blend together, is you paint one beside the other while it's wet, and they blend together on their own right on your paper and make watercolor magic. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I've got just some slightly darker color making it look like that hat kind of bends back up underneath there and is laying on his head. Now that other part that's up there gets painted green, and I'm going to come back and do that in a minute. If I do it right now, I'll have the same thing happening that I just showed you here. If I paint green right there while that's too wet, they could run together, and that's not the look that I want right there. So now I've got the lighter red back on my brush, and I'm going to paint in the outer edge of this sleeve. And right up onto the shoulder. Then I'll get some of the darker color again, just on the tip of my brush, and start putting this darker color in around the beard and back in the under the arm area there. And that little tiny bit that's showing right there, and again pushing the tip of my brush in here, getting some kind of fur appearance going on where the fur trim is. And I'm going to need to blend that just a little bit with that clean, barely damp brush. Okay, then with the darker color on the tip of my brush, I'm going to go right up under here. And I don't want fur edge on the mitten, but then on the cuff, I want to have a little bit of the appearance of fur, so I'll just push my brush in a little bit like that. I like this nice and rich. It looks like a nice coat that he's wearing there. Got some darker color in it, just a bit, and go back to pushing that in there. Just turn your brush around whatever way you need to turn it to get the bristles to stick over in there into that white fur trim area. And you've got an edge that looks like fur. Now the heart is red and the boot is red, and that's about the end. Well, I'm going to put some bright red hearts on there. But that's looking pretty good. Now I think I will switch brushes because this one's going to be too large to do either of those two things. So that brush down and pick up my round brush. I do want to get that red color out of here though, because I'm going to use it for something else. I don't want the red to ruin the color. Good enough for the moment. Let me make sure this one's clean too, because I was Yeah, okay. Now, round brush. And this one is a size 6. Yeah, it's a size 6. So if you need to know that. But again, as long as you've got a really good quality brush that holds its point good when it's wet, it doesn't matter if it's big. Now I'm going to pick up some of my alizarin crimson because I like that color, and I'm going to do this heart. And I had it a fairly strong pigment, more pigment, less water. But I've got a lot of that paint floating around on this heart here. So I'm going to just draw it down to where I want it and then kind of spread it out so it can dry nice and even. After it's dried a little bit, I might touch a brush to just part of it to kind of mess up the evenness of it and give it a just a less even color. I don't know how to explain it better. If I just do that right now and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when that dries like that, it's going to have like a little bit of a highlighty sort of an appearance. It's not solid and evenly colored. I like how it looks. For the folk art style, I think it is more common for it to be a solid color, and you can leave your solid color if you want it. I just happen to like it looking like that. All right, now I think I'm going to use this tiny flat angle brush here. I don't even have a size marking on here anymore. I've worn it all off with my fingers. So it's really a small, flat, angled brush. And I'm going to pick up some of my darker red color. In fact, I might add a bit more of the violet to the puddle of alizarin crimson and scarlet lake mix that I've got going on, and get something pretty dark and put it up under the edge of, it's on the top edge of the boot, but right up where the boot kind of meets the pant leg and the bag of toys. Then I'm going to start adding some more of the alizarin crimson back into my puddle over there, and then just continue painting with that. Paint right out to the front of that boot there. Start down the side, and I'm going to go right along the bottom with this. And then I'm going to get some more of just the Scarlet Lake and paint right in there with that, without it being mixed with anything else. But because everything is still wet in here, those colors are running together right on my paper, and I get a really nice look. And I've got a lot of pigment in this mix I'm painting with, so it's coming out really dark and pretty. I like it. I'm add just a little bit more of the violet right up in there because I want that to be darker and give some shape to that boot. And then I'm going to take some of my most violet and run it right along the bottom there to put kind of a soul on that boot. And that is that done. Okay, now back to the round brush again, and I'm going to put the hearts in that are on the stick over there. I'm just going to use Scarlet Lake for that, or Cad Red. You could use whatever kind of red you want in your hearts back here. And I'm using very few bristles on this brush, actually painting just with the very tip of the brush, and it allows me to have a lot of control and get the details in there, even though it's not a teeny tiny brush. But it is a good quality one, so it holds its point really good. And I'm going to go ahead and paint that stick red. Okay, that's good. And I think now I'll paint. Let's go for his face. We want some really, really pale orangey color on his face, and this color is going to be as much water and light like we did on the background. So I've just got a little tiny bit of burnt sienna, and I'm pulling some over into some of that puddle that we use for the background, and it's really kind of orangey. If it's not quite as peachy, I guess maybe I should say, if it's not quite got the right color, you can touch in the least little amount of one of your reds, but you really don't want very much to that, and you don't want a lot of color, and you don't want a lot of water on your brush. So I'm just going to touch my brush right up here at the top of it, near the ferrule. I'm going to touch that to my paper towel, and then just start putting that color really faintly right in there on that face. Not much color at all, just that little hint of color all over. And then what I'll do is put a little bit of pink. It needs to dry just a little bit. It's a little too wet to go ahead and put the red in, the pink cheeks, etc. But I've got just that faint little bit of color there in his face, and then I'm going to do something very similar to the beard. I'm going to use some of the yellower part of my background color, and with it pretty watered down and diluted, but not a whole lot of wet paintbrush, just very diluted color on there. I'm going to just put some yellow in here in this beard, and mostly I'm just kind of going over the lines that I drew to create the beard, because remember, this is a stylized beard. We're not going for realism here. So I just put a little bit of that color right in there, and for the most part I'm going to leave his mustache alone. If I try to put color in it, it usually gets messed up, so I'm going to leave that alone, but I am going to put a little bit of color in the hair. I don't want to put too much, and I don't want it to be too brown. I want it yellow, or tending a lot more toward yellow, and not a whole lot, just a hint of color there. If I put a little tiny bit of this anywhere, I would put it just right along the bottom edge and right up close to where the nose is. But I really don't want too much color in the mustache. It messes it up and doesn't look nice. Now, if I wanted to add a little more color than what I've got there, I would wait till that's dry, and then I would put a little tiny bit of dashes of either a little bit more brown or possibly a little bit of lavender in there. But let's see if I can get this up close to the camera and get where you can see how much color I put in that beard. It isn't very much at all. So, and the face as well, just a little hint of color in there. And there's the heart on the toy bag. I was showing you how I did that, and I guess you can see the jaggedy edges that I put on there to create fur, or the appearance of fur on the fur trim on the front of his coat right there, by pushing the front of my brush into it. Okay, so now let's paint the background. Let's paint the toy bag, because that's going to then need to dry, and we can paint the other little bits while the toy bag dries. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna go back to my my flat angled brush here, and I got to decide what color I want to put on here to make this kind of look like burlap. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just use again some of the puddle that I have left over from this back, but I'm going to put more yellow into it. And if I don't like that color, I can add some burnt sienna into it. And it gives it a pretty color. And I don't want it as diluted as that was, so we'll need a bit more pigment in there. I guess I should switch to where you can see my paint palette. Let's see if this one might be the one that's not showing you enough of light. That's not bad. Okay, so I've got a pretty good bunch of yellow ochre right there, and I'm going to get some burnt sienna and just drag some of that over into it, mix that together. And if that's not going where I want it to go, I can add a little bit of violet and just put it over there, and then I'm going to drag a little bit over in here as I need it. And then dilute it till it's to the point that I think, okay, it's a good color. And then just put that on this bag. And I'm dragging my brush kind of almost flat along the paper, because I want to kind of drag the pigment around so that it's not solidly one color. And I can add a bit more of the purple down here in this bottom corner just to kind of give it some form. And I just remembered I like to keep near that heart a little bit lighter yellow, so I'm going to blot some of that back out of there so I can put some bright yellow right in there. But just get the bulk of the bag painted. I am going to put more purple right along the bottom because that's where it seems like it would. Oops, that's probably too much. It might look pretty though. I'll leave it, see what it does. Okay, I want some darker color right up along the edge there. And if you drag your brush along with it mostly flat, it kind of helps blend that color in so you don't get a stark change of color there. If you do, just get your brush clean and most of the water out of it, and just kind of do that. But don't forget to get most of the water wiped out of it, or you'll just be smooshing it around, dragging it off the paper more than putting it on. Now I'm going to just get some plain yellow and kind of wipe some yellow right onto the center of there. Kind of right up to where the heart is. And again, with my brush almost flat on the page, I can kind of spread those colors around and get the appearance that I want happening there. As long as the paint is still wet. Once it starts getting dry, this causes problems. So you want to do it while it's still wet. I think I like how that purple looks, so I'm going to touch in just a little bit right at the top edge here to kind of give a little bit of definition to the lip there of the top edge of the bag. And again, I'm painting with like 3 bristles on the end of my flat brush here. And I will zoom back in because I don't think you need to see the paint palette right this minute. So, Okay, so there's what we've got. Now I'm going to get that purple out of my paintbrush. And in fact, I'm going to switch back to the round, and I'm going to do the green on the top of his hat. And I have some phthalo green in my paint palette, and I'm just going to mix that with a little bit of burnt sienna into there to kind of darken it a little bit so it's not too gaudy. And just touch that right into there. And painting like this is why I said you could use paper that's not really super expensive paper. You can get by with that on here because of painting in small little bits like this. I don't often do it anymore, but I have actually in the past painted right on cardstock because I was making gift tags or cards or small things like that. As long as you're not using a whole lot of water, you can get by with that. But buy good watercolor paper if you're going to make something that you're gifting or going to try to sell. All right, now let's put some bright yellow on that star, and I'm going to use the round brush for that too because I want the nice point. I want the control I'll have there. And there's no shading or anything that needs to be done on this. Just paint it bright yellow. Okay, and then I'm going to take my leftover green puddle from the hat, and I'm going to add some more some blue to it. I've got several different options in my palette. Ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and indigo. And I'm going to add a bit of indigo just because I can, and I like indigo. I'm going to add that to my green puddle and do the mittens with a dark blue-green color. I think that'll be pretty. So I'm going to just put that right in here. And you can paint this solidly, or you can leave some spots showing to look like a design embroidered onto his mittens, or you can paint some darker spots on it. There's a lot of different options you can do to fancy up his mittens if you want to. Now I'm going to have to be careful here because this yellow from the star is still wet. And if I touch this green color to the yellow, they'll run together and the star will be not yellow anymore. So for the time being at least, I'm going to leave a little white in between the mitten and the star. I may leave it there because it doesn't look bad. And that's a nice mitten. Okay, now what color do I want these birds? I'm going to paint them really light blue. And I have a verditer blue, or verditer, I don't really know how you pronounce it. I think it's verditer blue, spelled with a V. And I'm making a little puddle of that, and I'm going to pull in a little tiny bit of my cobalt turquoise in a minute too. So let's see how I want to do this. I'm going to paint the tail with the light blue. I've got too much wetness on my brush. There. Light blue tail and light blue wing. I'm going to leave the head white. So again on this one, this verditer blue on the tail and across the back and into the wing. Then I'll mostly pull that out of my brush and get some of this cobalt turquoise and paint the belly, what we might call the breast of it, right up into the head. So I've got two different color blues on that pretty little bird. And sometimes I paint a little dark color for the beak. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that this time or not. I'll leave that decision for a minute. I'm going to need to paint the inside of the top of the bag though. I almost forgot that. And I think I'm going to just take some straight burnt sienna and put that in there. Again, I want a lot of pigment, not a lot of water on this brush. I want to get the dark color, and I don't want this running into the other colors. There, that's the inside of that bag. Now I'm going to take some dark blue on the tip of this brush. I'm going to go in my ultramarine blue and just load some really dark ultramarine. Let's see, I'm not sure if I'm zoomed all the way in, but I think I am. So I'm going to just touch this, the tip of my brush that has ultramarine on it. I'm going to touch it into this eye area. I basically want to do the same thing there that I did with my pencil, which is just kind of make a little bit of a roundish eye without really trying to get a lot of definition for the shape or an eyeball shape. We don't really need that there. Okay, so that is that. Now I need some green. I'm going to add some yellow to the puddle that I did from the mittens. I'm just going to pick up some of my puddle from this bag and put it over into the puddle left over from the mittens and get a green color that's slightly different than that. It's back to a little bit more green. It's not really the same as his hat. It's almost an olivey or a dark sap green. And just kind of touch that onto these leaf shapes that we made on the bag, the burlap bag. That's all I need to do on there. Now we need a dark brown for the twigs, and then we need the black for the checkerboard parts and the stripes on the pants. And so I'm going to do the dark brown first. I'm going to just take, I've already got a little bit of burnt sienna in a puddle on my paint palette, and I'm going to get some violet color. This particular one is Windsor Violet. I'm going to get some Windsor Violet. I just got way too much. Don't know how I did that. Okay, so now I've got to get some more. I'm using yellow ochre with a little Windsor Violet in it. It makes a real muddy brown, but it is a nice dark brown. And I don't need to put a lot of it on there, so that's why that works. If you don't want it a muddy brown, you can maybe use your quinacridone gold or your other, whatever yellow you have. Got too much water in my brush here. That's better. Okay, so I've got a really dark brown going on. And I'm going to turn this around because it's easier to pull this way than it is to draw down into the bag. So now I'm going to get right down here at my paper level, and I'm going to start putting a little bit of color on those pencil marks. You don't really even need to feel like you have to cover over all of the pencil mark. They're not bad, just like they are, but I like to put a little bit of color so they look like twigs. And I like to make that color using violet because I just like how it looks you got the shadow and the light, almost like doing it for you all by itself when you mix your color like that. So just tickling a little bit of color onto the twigs that I've got here. Okay, I think I like how that looks pretty well. Look like sticks sticking up out of that bag. Okay, as I said, don't be tempted to overdo it. Okay, that's pretty good on that. Now I want to put, I want to turn some of my puddle on my paint palette into a black color to use for the stripes and the checkerboards. But before I do that, I want to use a little bit of that red before I lose it by mixing it into black. I want to put a little bit of splatter on here. Like I've got on my reference photo has these little bits of splatter, and I'm using red because it's kind of like the main color I've got going on in my piece. So instead of using white, I could use white if I wanted, and in fact, since I've got one red, I think I will do a little bit of white, but I'm going to do a little bit of red too. So I'm going to get just a really nice, strong, juicy red color that's plenty moist on my paintbrush so that it'll make droplets. And then what I'm going to do is this brush is really full of red, and I'm going to just do a little bit like that. There. So I've got a little bit of red droplets going on there. I like how it looks. All right, now let's go over to my paint palette. Let's see if I've got that over there. Okay, it's there. I'm going to take the red puddle that I've got here, and I'm going to pull this purple yellow mess up into it, and I'm going to pull some of this green over into it, and just pull those colors together. It's all the colors I was already working with on my paper, and they're going to mix together and make a really nice dark. And because it's all the colors I was already using on my paper, it's going to flow nicely with what I've got going on. Now there's not quite enough darkness to that. I'm going to add a little bit of my Winsor Violet and darken that up. If it's too purpley red, you can either add some more, pull some more of your green over into it, or just remind yourself of what colors we used to get that green and put a little bit more of those colors in it. So there was a bit of indigo in this, and I'm going to add just a little bit more. And that is a really beautiful dark color. It's not exactly black, but it's going to look close enough to black, and it's going to work perfectly with what else I've got going on in my painting. So there we go. We'll zoom in, and actually I might need to zoom in even more than that so that you can see where I'm painting these little checkerboard diamond sort of shapes. Let's go ahead and zoom the whole way in. And I think does that have everything in it? Yeah, that's as good as we're going to get there. Okay, now I've discovered too that if I paint the outer edges with the black, it kind of helps define the shape better than when I paint it with white. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one up here at this edge, and I'm just going to get started putting color while my brush is really loaded. I'm going to put that color right on there. Then I'm going to go back down in here and get some more in here, and I'll go back in a minute
and neaten it up. Right now I just want to get color on every one of those little diamond shapes. You could do this if you prefer. You can do it with squares and just make it a checkerboard instead of diamonds. I just found that I liked the look of the diamonds. It added another something to the piece, so that's why I did that. But you see, I got the color everywhere I wanted it, and then I'm going back through and making it a little bit neater. I feel like I messed up right there somehow. I did. I'm just going to put a line there because I don't know what I did, so there. Okay, so that looks good. I'll do the next one. I'll just put color everywhere it needs to go first. And then go back through and make it neat. One more area down here in the bottom edge of the coat. And again, remember the top edge, and hopefully the way you drew your lines, it'll work out at the bottom edge as well. But it just kind of seems to work better and look prettier when you get that top edge started out in black instead of white. And I could attempt to enhance the appearance of fur right down here if I wanted, by putting a little bit of black coming down into the fur edge there like that. If I was going to do that up here, it would look kind of like this. And you want to keep them really little bits of small lines coming in there. Just kind of enhances the this is fur factor. Okay, now I want to do the stripes on the bottom of these pants, and I'm going to start with this little tip out here. And go in here. And again, that's fur up there, so you can put it a little jagged if you want to, but not on the bottom edge. Right over to the toy bag. And that is good on that. Now I'm looking to see if I've missed anything. Oh, I know what I missed. I didn't pink up his nose and cheeks. And I think that'll be the final thing. I want to for sure get all of this dark color out of my paintbrush before I start to do that though. So I'm going to get water on there and then rub it around on this white paper towel just to see if it's clean or not. I think I about need a new paper towel here. And I just keep doing that until I can see that there's no more color coming off the brush onto that paper towel. Okay, so that's clean, and I'm going to get a little tiny bit of pink. I've got an actual pink color called Opera Rose, or Opera Pink, I think it is. But you could use Permanent Rose or anything like that, and just get a really watery mix of it going on there, and just kind of touch some in on that nose and on those cheeks. And then I'm going to suck some of that water back up out of there because it was too wet. And blend it out just a little bit so I don't actually have two pink dots on there, just some kind of rounded little apple cheek shapes. And that's all I really need for that. Now I'm going to see here, I've got some bleed proof white. I think I've heard other people call it pro white or stuff like that. It's like gouache, but I don't have any gouache. I find that the gouache kind of dries cloudy. I like a brighter white thing, so I like this bleed proof white stuff. And I'm going to just get some, my paintbrush was really wet, and I'm dipping it into here to get some of this whiteness onto the brush, and I'm going to splatter some of this on here, the same like I splattered the red. And I don't have it wet enough, so a little bit more water. That's nice. I don't care for that one little white drop right in the top of his hat, so I'm going to just remove that. And I'm just kind of picking it up there with my clean brush and spread the rest of it out, and then touch a little bit of red back over the top of it. And that's good. On the whole, I like it. So let's see, I might have to zoom back out. Oops, I bumped the camera. That's helpful, I'm sure. Zoom back out just a little bit so we can get the whole thing in the frame. And I think that's got it. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and draw another one on this other side here. If you want to stay, you can stay and watch me draw. I'm going to draw this other guy right here. While I talk to you a little bit about some virtual paint classes I've got coming up, just to let you know what's happening. So I'm going to draw this guy while I talk to you about that. But hopefully, let's see, I'm looking again and I don't see that I've missed anything. I think I got it all on there, and I like how it looks. It's pretty. And I like the two little birds there. That's, you may not have noticed, but there is actually a bird in this one too. I just painted it a bad color, it doesn't show. So I'm going to turn this around, and because I'm done painting, at least for the moment, I'm going to put the lid on here. So I can push that out of the way and turn this light off before I lose all my battery on it. Not that it did a whole lot of good, but I think it might have done some. Alright, so that's over, and this is here, and I'm going to just use my mechanical pencil and draw this other guy here. And I wanted to tell you, I really like these old world style figures for the holidays. I've got several of them. I've got some really tall, skinny snowmen with top hats and things, and then I've got this little girl that is a holiday baker. She's wearing an apron with well, let's see if I've got her here. She's got a gingerbread man on her apron. I think this is so pretty. Hopefully you can see that whole thing in the frame. Move this up here so I can see if I've got it. Yeah, that's pretty much all in there. But anyway, she's really cute, and I've got a snow maiden. But the snow maiden is really too large to get in the frame. I'm almost positive. If I put this up here, I'm not even sure you can see her, but you get the general idea. It's a snow maiden, sort of like what is her name? Elsa in the Frozen movies. But anyway, I've got some figures like this, and I'm going to be doing some paint classes via Zoom, so they're fully interactive, so you can actually talk to me, you can show me your work, and those are going to be, I think I'm going to be making them a series. Like, we can't do 5 in one. I'm not up for a 4-hour painting session. I don't have the whatever it is that can keep you sitting in a chair for that long drawing. These sessions that I'm doing here that are about 2 hours are the max I can do. I'm starting this off the same way I started the other one, an upside down letter U, and then I put the mustache in. But anyway, I'm going to do those classes, and it'll be like Wednesday and Saturday, or 2 Wednesdays in a row, something along those lines. And it'll be via Zoom, and it'll be a minimum of 5 holiday figures that we'll draw in the 2 classes, and so we'll call it a course, and it's going to be $20 for that course, and you will get the interactive class, and also I'll be sending out tracers. So if you don't want to actually have to draw, you can just use the tracer and trace the piece right onto your paper and paint with me. But I'll be putting a link for that probably after this session today, after we finish, and YouTube uploads it. I'll put the link in the description, or if you want, you can either ask me questions in the comments, or you can shoot me an email or something from my website, which, to find my website, that's right on my YouTube page as well. You should be able to find everything you ever need to contact me right on my YouTube page. Okay, so you saw I drew the mustache, and now I'm just working on his hat here. And it's really a bunch of simple lines. And we get these figures going, and they look really cute. They're fun to draw, fun to paint, and they're also pretty fun to gift to your friends, or decorate your own house with it. Kind of whatever you want to do. Some hair for him, and he's got a little bundle of holly berries and leaves decorating the side of him. I think this guy is probably an elf more so than a Santa, but I don't know for sure. He can be whatever we want him to be. He's got a nice big nose, and just the little round eyes, and some nice little eyebrows right there. Then he's got fur trim on his hat and on his coat, and then he's got a beard that comes out. Let's see, I'm going to do his shoulders next though, because I want that to come out to here And this one comes out and back around. That one I don't quite like the look of. Right now, a bit of beard happening. And then we've got right here in the center, let's put the sleeves on next. That will help that. This is going to just come right down to here, and then we go up here. Then we're going to just create the appearance of two hands with the fingers interlocked, kind of like that. Hopefully you can see that. I'll draw it a little harder. And then we sit a little pretty little bird right in the palm of his hands. With that upside down U. Then shoot the tail off that way. And the back is mostly straight, maybe coming down a little. And then we just put a little head, rounded head, and the face and the beak. We could put a wing on it, put a little eye in there. So he's just got a little bird sitting in his hands. And we'll put the inside of the sleeves going up here. And then the bottom of his coat just kind of comes out this way and out this way. And we've got, see, his beard comes right along. Let's go ahead and finish this sleeve out. Up this way and in there. And this beard is going to come right down to there. This sleeve goes in this way, beard here, and he does need that little bit of a lip. And then we've got the white fur trim coming right down here and right out from here. And then his legs just come straight down like this. Very simple. And he's got these great big huge boots. And these shoes are why I think he's more of an elf than a Santa Claus. And I should have said, you want these toe things, you've got another upside down, another U right there, and you want them to come out to about where the edge of his jacket is. And that just goes there. And when you paint it, you can paint it like it was like socks, like that. Put some stripes on those pants. And then again, well, I'm going to just do the checkerboard pattern here on these cuffs, but I do kind of like offset the lines. Instead of just drawing a line straight across there, I don't make it exactly matched. It gives a I like the appearance of that. It's a little bit more, what do we say, homespun or folk artsy. They're not offset by a whole lot, not like you would say a shingle roof, but just a little bit. Okay, then we've got the same kind of checkerboard thing happening up here in this part of his hat. and he's all done. He's ready to paint, just that quick. So that's 2 drawings and 1 painting, and I hope you saw how easy it is to get a wood grain on the back of your piece. And I guess if anybody has any comments or anything, please let me know. Otherwise, I think we're going to call it done for the day. We have been going for quite a while, but I do like painting holiday paintings. We'll be back in 2 weeks. The date of that is, let's see here. Oh, I'm still in October on my calendar. So now my calendar's in the floor. There we go. Dropped my calendar, so getting it back in the right thing here. Okay. November 19th. And we're going to do a kind of a Thanksgiving sort of deal. It's going to be a still life with some Indian corn and some gourds, and what exactly is on there. It's based on a picture I did a long time ago. Oh, there's a big pumpkin in the background. I made this mosaic thing, and it is really, really faded because it's just construction paper. I almost hate to even show it to you, but it's just a still life of some gourds, some acorn squash, a pumpkin, and some Indian corn, and we're going to draw that. I may possibly decide to just send out the tracer for that. Haven't decided. I think I want to show you how easy it is to draw that Indian corn, because you don't need to over detail it. You can simplify it and get a really beautiful look from that. So that's for 2 weeks from today, on my next live stream, and I'll be getting a link for that up as soon as I can. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the videos, and I guess I'll see you next time.